Ever get that feeling? Like that truly remarkable work you see out there? The kind that just really resonates.
Yeah.
It's somehow like out of reach.
Yeah, definitely.
Like almost like there's some secret ingredient you just don't have.
Uh-huh.
Well, get ready for a bit of a shift in perspective, because what if the secret wasn't some, innate gift, but something much more accessible?
Mm.
And that's what we're going to unpack today in this deep dive into Seth Godin's The Practice, Shipping Creative Work.
Yeah, that's right. Forget about waiting for lightning to strike.
Yeah.
or for some hidden talent to just magically surface.
Right.
Our mission today for you, the listener, is to extract the core principles from Godin's work and demonstrate how consistent action and a commitment to shipping, that is actually putting your work out there, is the real engine of creative progress. We're going to equip you with actionable insights no matter your field or level of expertise.
Yeah.
And we're going to explain it clearly and without any unnecessary fluff.
Okay, so let's dive straight into this fundamental idea. The book's title says it all, The Practice. Godin is really hammering home the point that creative work isn't this passive waiting game. It's an active endeavor.
Yeah.
And he draws a sharp contrast to the old industrial model.
Right.
Where you followed a precise formula and expected a predictable outcome. But the kind of work that truly matters, the stuff that actually changes things, that's a totally different animal.
That's right. And what's so fascinating here is how Godin reframes our understanding of what art actually is. It's not limited to, just galleries or concert halls. Instead, he defines it as the human act of doing something that might not work, something generous, something that will make a difference.
Yeah.
Now, for you, the learner, is a total game changer.
Right.
It means any intentional effort you make to improve a situation or to contribute something meaningful, even if the result isn't guaranteed, that is in itself a creative act.
And that fear that it won't work.
Yeah.
It is such a common roadblock, isn't it?
It is.
It stops so many people dead in their tracks.
Yeah.
Godin has this great analogy, how to draw an owl. Step 1 is draw 2 ovals. And then step 2 is draw a fully detailed owl. And it's hilarious because like all the crucial steps in between are completely missing.
Right.
Which is just such a perfect illustration of how overwhelming any new creative endeavor can feel.
Yeah, and that analogy really hits home, I think, because we tend to fixate on the polished final product and overlook the messy iterative process that's required to get there.
Yeah.
And as Godin wisely notes, for the important work, the instructions are always insufficient.
Right.
And this ties in beautifully with the juggling analogy he uses.
Yeah.
It's about focusing on the act of creation itself.
Yeah.
Rather than obsessively trying to catch every single ball perfectly from the very beginning.
Right.
The inevitable drops, the imperfections, they're all just integral parts of the learning curve. For you, the key insight here is to accept and even expect those messy middle steps in your own projects.
Scat. It's about throwing, not catching. And honestly, that's such a liberating idea.
It is.
It takes away so much of the pressure to be perfect right out of the gate. And, we've all felt that imposter syndrome creeping in, haven't we?
Oh, for sure.
That little voice whispering, who do you think you are to even try this?
Exactly.
But Godin talks about innovation as simply acting as if and learning and developing through the act of doing.
Yeah.
He even mentions the cartoonist Drew Dernovich, whose visually successful work seems to just emerge from this mountain of discarded ideas, his what he calls his discard pile. It's such a powerful reminder that quantity and iteration can pave the way to quality.
It's true. And what's really important for you to internalize is Godin's firm assertion that creativity is an action, not a feeling. We can't just sit around waiting for inspiration to strike. It's about committing to the daily practice, showing up, putting in the work, even when we don't feel particularly motivated. That's what truly fuels the creative process. This consistent, deliberate action is what ultimately shapes our skills and allows our ideas to evolve.
So we've established that consistently showing up and practicing is absolutely vital.
Yeah.
But just going through the motions isn't really enough, is it?
Well, it's a start, but you're right, it's not enough.
Godin stresses that our intent matters.
Yeah.
He talks about intentional action as being designed with purpose and empathy.
Yeah, and intentionality brings much needed focus and direction to our efforts.
Right.
Godin actually lays out 3 fundamental questions to guide this.
Okay.
The first is, who are you trying to change?
Okay.
The second is, what specific change are you trying to make? And the third is, How will you know if your efforts have been successful?
Right.
These questions force us to think beyond mere self-expression and really consider the impact we want to have on others. This relates directly to your goal of gaining applicable knowledge.
Yeah.
Understanding your intent makes your actions far more effective.
And that first question, who's it for, is so insightful.
It is.
It's not about trying to please everybody,
Right.
which often leads to diluted, unremarkable work.
Yeah.
He uses the analogy of network television in the past, aiming for the broadest possible audience and often ending up with very generic shows.
Right.
Think Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
Instead, Godin champions the idea of focusing intently on someone, not everyone. Much like HBO did with their niche programming that deeply resonated with specific viewers. Shows like The Sopranos or Mad Men.
Yeah, and this concept of deeply understanding and serving a specific audience is what Godin calls practical empathy.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely crucial. It fosters a much stronger connection and allows for a more significant and meaningful impact.
Right.
And then that next question, what's it for, pushes us even further to consider the fundamental purpose behind our work. Godin uses the example of the receptionist at the Green Mill Jazz Bar, who acts as a curator of a particular listening experience.
Right.
Or even the simple save button on a word processor. Everything has an underlying reason for its existence. And by understanding that core purpose in our own endeavors, we can contribute much more effectively.
Now, you might initially think that having all these constraints, these very specific intentions, would actually stifle creativity. But Godin makes a compelling argument for the opposite.
Yeah.
He says that constraints create the possibility of art.
That's right.
He points to Susan Care's iconic work, designing the original Apple Macintosh icons within an incredibly restrictive 32 by 32 pixel grid. Those very limitations actually sparked remarkable innovation and a distinct visual language. So counterintuitively, limitations aren't roadblocks. They're actually fertile ground for true originality.
What's so fascinating about that is how limitations force us to become resourceful and discover truly creative solutions. A perfect example is the band REM, who incorporated mandolins into their sound. It's a perfect illustration of embracing a constraint that's a little unusual to develop a unique and recognizable musical identity. Godin also draws an important distinction between genre and generic. Genre provides a useful framework, a set of shared expectations and conventions with your audience. While generic is simply falling into predictable and uninspired patterns without any real intention. So understanding the genre you're working within actually allows for intentional boundary pushing and genuine innovation within a recognizable context.
So like different styles of music.
Exactly.
Jazz, classical, rock. These are genres with established conventions. So playing generically within a genre would just be repeating cliches. Whereas pushing the boundaries within jazz, for example, that would be innovative.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
And this naturally leads us to the idea of cultivating a professional's mindset. Godin talks about the importance of being the lifeguard, the person who steps up and takes action, who contributes even when they don't feel entirely certain or perfectly qualified. It's about embracing responsibility and consistently showing up to do the work.
That's a really powerful image. It highlights the importance of action over simply waiting for the right feeling or perfect conditions. Godin also draws a distinction between talent and skill. Emphasizing that skill is something that's earned through dedicated practice and is therefore accessible to everyone, regardless of any perceived innate gifts. And Steve Martin famously said, "I had no talent. None." Which really drives home this point. Godin also challenges the idea that generous means free. He actually explains that charging for your work signifies enrollment and communicates its inherent value to both you and your audience.
And I really like his concept of trusting yourself, and he intentionally spells it as 3 separate words. As being akin to having a diligent, patient, and insightful inner boss.
I like that.
You're building that internal reservoir of confidence through consistent effort and self-compassion. He also tackles this often dreaded writer's block. He reframes it not as some sort of external affliction, but more as a narrative we tell ourselves. And he emphasizes the importance of just simple movement and consistent work
Yeah.
as powerful antidotes. And I think he separates those words to emphasize the active internal relationship you're building with your own consistent effort, like having a reliable inner mentor.
Yeah, I like that.
What's really crucial for you to grasp here is the shift from constantly striving for a definitive win or a final endpoint,
Yeah.
and instead embracing the idea of the infinite game,
Right.
focusing on playing for the sake of continuing to play on the ongoing journey of creative contribution and learning. This longer-term perspective really helps to alleviate the pressure of immediate perfection
Yeah.
and encourages a more sustainable engagement with your practice.
It does.
Now, as we inevitably put our work out into the world, feedback is something we're all going to encounter.
For sure.
And Godin makes a helpful distinction between non-generous and generous critics. The non-generous ones often resort to personal attacks or completely miss the underlying intent of the work.
Right.
It's like those Amazon reviewers who complain about a science fiction book having either too much or too little science.
Right.
But a generous critic takes the time to actually understand your intentions
Yeah.
and focuses their feedback on the work itself, offering potentially valuable insights.
Exactly. And learning to effectively discern between those different types of feedback is an absolutely essential skill.
It is.
Godin highlights the experience of filmmaker Sam Raimi,
Okay.
who early in his career would screen his films for paying audiences and actively listen for the boos as a way to identify what wasn't working and improve his craft.
Wow.
This speaks to the value of what Godin calls practical empathy, deeply understanding and serving the needs of a specific audience rather than trying to please absolutely everyone.
Right.
He also makes the point that assertions are generous. Putting your ideas and your work out there, even if they feel incomplete or not fully formed, is a necessary and generous act. It forms the foundation of the creative process.
Yeah.
So for you, this means don't get bogged down in trying to perfect something before it's even out there. Focus on starting and iterating based on thoughtful feedback.
Finally, Godin delves into the question of how we actually improve and find our creative footing. He states a simple but profound truth. The truth about getting better is that it demands real commitment and a willingness to perhaps let some other areas of your life take a back seat for a while. You just can't achieve excellence in everything simultaneously. He also underscores the importance of finding your cohort, a supportive community of like-minded peers who really understand the challenges and rewards of the creative practice and offer invaluable encouragement and validation. He shares the story of a young Isaac Asimov finding both solace and a sense of belonging amidst other writers at the New York Public Library.
Right, and this idea of cultivating and nurturing a supportive community is so important for sustaining a long-term creative practice. It helps normalize the inevitable challenges, allows you to celebrate the small victories, and provides that crucial sense of not being alone on this journey.
So to bring it all together for you, our listener, what are the core insights from our deep dive into Seth Godin's The Practice? It's the empowering realization that consistent practice trumps any perceived innate talent. The absolutely vital role of intentionality and truly understanding who you're trying to reach and what change you're aiming to make. The surprising creative power that can be unleashed by embracing constraints. And the fundamental shift in mindset from constantly seeking absolute certainty to trusting the ongoing and evolving process of creation itself.
And building on those key takeaways, here's a final thought for you to consider. Think about the concept of the fifth hammer in your own life. This refers to that seemingly misfit element, that unconventional approach, or that aspect of your work or your process that doesn't quite conform to the established rules or expectations. What unexpected possibilities might emerge if you deliberately leaned into that seemingly out-of-place element? Could it be the key to unlocking a more resonant and ultimately more impactful outcome?
Ultimately, please remember this. You already possess everything you need to begin or deepen your own unique creative practice. Regardless of your specific field or your current level of confidence. The real magic, as Godin articulates, is that there is no magic involved at all.
That's right.
It's about consistently showing up diligently, doing the work, embracing the continuous process of learning, and having the courage to trust yourself to contribute your unique perspective to the world. Now go out there and make some meaningful noise.
Yeah, go for it.
Hmm.
Yeah. All right.